The Gentlementor.
I'm sure it was notable when I watched the first Curry video. And when I watched it, you get up there and you stop for your Cliff Bar, and I'm like, yeah, an oxygen tent and a 3 hour nap, and then I'll be ready to go back down. And you go and you're at the car in the parking lot. I'm like, well, that was odd. There's nothing in there about the mountain. You didn't really show anything. And then I think it was within the next 48 hours you put out kind of a little promo.
Yeah.
I've got a video, and I'm like, okay, well, this sounds interesting because I don't do opinion, but I'm gonna. And when I watched it, like I said, it immediately spoke to me about what we're trying to do, this effort we have in this kind of, I don't know, postmodern culture. We grew up in an era where there was church and there was home and there was school and there was the barber shop and the diner, and all these places were people met, and to a certain extent information was exchanged. I mean, the barbershop was full of storytellers, but there was information exchange. You could have a guy walk in and tell another guy, I'm having this problem with my tractor, and he'd go, oh, well, have you thought about doing this? And our culture has kind of become void of those places.
Right.
So we want to become that kind of place for people to do that. And you look at this problem, and I see, pick your cultural event of the day, and what I see is what appears to me to be a younger generation that has become disconnected from history. There's no context, there's no value. I don't want to sound like dad and go, oh, you don't respect your history. They don't even know it. And so you're an educator. So what do you see, or how do you see a path out of this? If you do.
Man.
Did I throw too much on you? I watched you did a video with an educator guy. It was an interview thing, and I can't remember the guy's name. And you talked about some initiatives that he had begun, the website and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's part of it, but you answered, because.
Man, how do I get into this without sounding dark and depressing?
Come on, do it.
So being interested in history education, the way that I am, I'm a part of a lot of different like Facebook groups and things like that are made up of history educators. That has been quite revealing to me. And you'll commonly hear the phrase, well, history isn't taught in schools anymore. That's not true. History is taught. It's the version of history that's being taught, or what history is being taught, that is a little bit dangerous and problematic. So speaking of spray paint and graffiti, there's been lots of spray paint and graffiti slung around in a lot of different places this year, with a lot of social unrest. I don't know if you've noticed.
I've tried not to.
So I was on one of these groups. I can't remember where exactly it was. I think it was in Portland. It was in one of those coastal areas out west. There had been a statue of George Washington that was defaced. All kinds of graffiti on it and things like that. And on this group, somebody posted the news article on this educators group, and people were weighing in with their opinions. And one individual made the comment, whenever, like something to the effect of, whenever you start defacing the statue of George Washington, you've gone too far, or they said that it would never come to George Washington statue coming down, and now look what's happening. Something like that. There was a history educator from New Jersey that jumped on there and replied to that comment, and he said, the current culture doesn't reflect the values of the founding fathers anymore. Maybe it's time to start tearing these things down. And that was a big wake-up moment for me, because I thought, okay, how many students come through this guy's class in a day? How many come through his class in the course of a year, or in the course of his career? and what is he telling them? Uh, and how many more are there that are like him?
Right.
Um,
Somebody taught him to be that way.
yeah, yeah. So that has been unsettling to me. And if anybody's listening, a lot of this um, comes from a book that was written by Howard Zinn. It's called A People's History of the United States, and is really kind of made popular in the movie Good Will Hunting. Matt Damon makes a comment about Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States, and I think that's where it really kind of picked up steam. Um, I won't get too deep into Howard Zinn or People's History of the United States, but in short, Howard Zinn was a self-proclaimed Marxist, and A People's History of the United States starts off at Columbus and goes all the way up, into close to present day, into the um, late 1900s, and it it frames everything in American history as the haves and the have-nots, and
Marxist lens.
yeah, everything's through a Marxist lens, and the oppressors and the oppressed. Okay, so the founding fathers aren't people that had this genius idea for this American experiment where people are free and your rights come from God. What the founding fathers were, if you read Howard Zinn, is they were like these evil capitalists that were looking to expand their own power. Um, World War II was not the U.S. and the British and the Canadians and the Allies saving the world from fascism and tyranny. Um, what it is this power struggle between capitalist nations, and the U.S. is the one who ends up on top, and then they end up kind of adopting the same ideologies as the Nazis. Um, the Marshall Plan is not the U.S. providing aid to rebuild Europe and to hold back communism. It's this capitalist goal to like economically dominate the world. Okay,
Colonization. Yeah.
that has become the uh, the text and curriculum of a lot of high school history teachers. So,
Really.
oh my gosh, yes.
See, you I mentioned that, and I can't.
Oh my gosh.
Forgive me, I don't remember the guy's name you were talking to. He's the professor guy. You guys
Mhm.
mentioned this book in your conversation, but I
Yeah,
didn't know what the what the scoop was. So
yeah. And um, I don't want to speak for him, but I would guess that he's probably, as far as a political ideology, more left leaning. I would guess. Um, would probably classify himself as a liberal or a moderate liberal. Even he looks at that and says, mm, Zen is bad history. Um,
that was my read of his response.
yeah, yeah.
So
Ed Ayers
Ed
is a
Ayers,
great
there you go.
guy. Yeah, he's a great guy, um, and is doing a lot of good things.
So I'll
Um,
rescue you from the dark and pessimistic. So do you see solutions or potential solutions? Ways that we can kind of do what you did, to try to invest a little time and little energy in some of this younger generation and help them to reconnect with that, if it's
I
even a possibility.
I think part of the way out is uh, that we live in an era where information and the access to information and the ability to share that information is so prolific that you don't just have one avenue to learn things anymore. Um, so I think that's one way. As far as like the way we teach our teachers or the way we do education, man, that's still one that I'm mulling over and trying to figure how do we fix this. As in my position as an educator, a high school educator, my goal, if students are around me long enough, they can probably figure out, you know, where I lean.
Yeah.
My goal is for them to. I want to make it really hard for them to figure it out.
Sure.
And whenever I'm presenting historical information, I say, so here's one ideology. For someone who might disagree with that, what would they say? Okay, so I try and show like this balanced view and show history from all perspectives. And what makes it, kind of back to Howard Zinn, what makes Howard Zinn so appealing is he frames it in a way that this is the history that your teacher didn't tell you. This is like secret information. We're going to pull the curtain back and we're going to show you how it really was. Okay, so Howard Zinn shows a part of history. He's very, very selective, but he takes these slivers and makes it seem like that's the whole. Which you can do that on the other side too.
Sure.
I think it's equally destructive to go up and completely whitewash history and talk about how America is this glowing place that has never made a mistake, and I think that's equally problematic. You just need to show the history as it is. That's what I try and do in the episodes, and that's why I leave my opinion out of it.
Right.
So we're fighting the now me culture. That's just, it's, with what you were talking about, sharing information and, with social media and everything's all about, we're sharing information, but we're really interested in you knowing more about me. Yeah. Because here's my selfies, here's my TikToks, here's me. And now I'm checking to see if you liked it. I'm checking to see if you viewed it. I'm checking, it's all the me now stuff. And we're not thinking about, okay, the past, others. We're not outward focused. We don't have arrows pointing out as generally, and in this new era of society. And I think that's the backlash that we're having. I've always told, since the movie Saving Private Ryan came out, I always thought that from the day I saw that movie, I thought every high school student should see this movie. I mean, there's probably better movies now, but back then that was the moment where even at my age, at that time when it came out, I was like, holy cow, I had no idea. I didn't have any idea how gruesome war is and how gruesome that moment in history was, and the struggle that those men and women had. It's just, that's amazing. And I think we're missing that. That's something I'm looking forward to, sitting my son down here soon and saying, okay, you're going to watch this. I know it's 2 hours, but you're going to watch it. You're going to appreciate it. And you're going to know where we are and why we're here. And
then you can show him the episode where I go to, the dog green sector of Omaha Beach.
Yeah, I saw that. And I'm like, oh, I can't wait. I'm going to watch those in conjunction together.
Yeah. And I think, so, I mean, if you're talking World War II history, like Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, I call those two productions the gateway drug into World War II history. Like so many people got interested in history because of those things. So, I mean, you talked about like the me culture and stuff like that, and it's absolutely true. What I found though is that everybody is interested in history. Not everybody knows it yet.
Yeah.
Most people who I talk to, who are, say something about how they they find out that I like history. I'm kind of rambling a little bit here. They find out that I like history, or that I do these history videos, and they'll say, "Oh, I hated history whenever I was in school. Hated it."
Yeah.
And within about 2 or 3 questions, I can narrow down why, and it usually has to do with a less than awesome history teacher. Okay. So on the one hand, you have the activist teacher who is doing damage to their students by trying to use their platform as a means to advance an ideology, whatever that ideology might be, right wing, left wing, whatever. on the other end of the spectrum, you have the stereotypical football coach who is there to coach but has to teach in order to justify his coaching position.
Right.
So the students walk into his class. He tells them, open up your book, read this, do this worksheet. And he sits and
watch this movie,
watches game films, you know, from the last night's game.
I think I know who you're talking about.
And it's, and it's boring as heck. I would hate that too. I would hate history if I was taught like that. So you kind of have those two extremes that are both doing damage to people, and that's why there's so much historical ignorance in this country. I don't mean that in a harsh, demeaning way. It's just, it's just the way.
Lack of knowledge.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And
that's what ignorance is. Yeah.
The selfishness, I think, makes a great point. I have been rewatching Band of Brothers and started. My mom's here for the holidays, and we put on the John Adams miniseries from HBO. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've not watched that.
It's really good. I had not realized the parallels of what they went through at that point in time, not so much during the revolution, but kind of post-revolution, getting into the Federalist years and the Adams and Jefferson and the deal with France and trying to figure out how to balance between being allied with England and being allied with France and not making anybody mad. And there are so many parallels, but I was thinking about all of the kind of the claptrap going along with the modern milieu of the news cycle and people talking about, we're going to have another civil war. We're going to have another revolution. Will there be this? Will there be that? And the one thing that I kind of came away with from watching this is no, we're not, because those people were willing to make sacrifices for liberty and freedom. Nobody today is. There won't be any Valley Forge for this generation because people aren't going to go stay in the tent with no shoes so they can fight the enemy now. It just won't happen because of that infernal selfishness that that we fed, and how do we wean people?
Yeah, but we don't have
that?
to now. All you got to do is be a good programmer and a good hack, and you can defeat and completely destroy countries right now. So
hey, mister,
you don't have to.
So here's not really off the topic, but kind of, you guys had again, Ayers, I believe is the man's name, gentleman's name again.
Ed Ayers. Yeah.
That was a great interview. I'm sorry I could not remember his name.
No, it's
sorry, sir.
I'm terrible with names too.
you guys referenced drunk history.
Okay.
And I don't. Are you familiar with it? I'm wondering what your thoughts are. I'm torn about it because I see it as potentially having great opportunity, but at the same time, less than thrilled about the format. It's like, is that where we are? Do we have to make it a circus?
So,
you know,
I can't comment on drunk history other than this is I hear other people talk about it. So the fact that other people talk about it lets me know that there's something there, at least.
There certainly is. My kids' day. I drive them nuts with my love of history, and when I go places, and I'm and over here's this thing, and this guy did this, and they'll sit and watch drunk history for hours. And I've watched it. And whereas it is goofy and it's a weird forum, most of what they put out is factually correct. And they deal with some difficult stuff. And that's what I'm kind of torn about the methodology, but it does seem to be effective on some level. So I didn't know if you had a thought on that. But.
So I feel the same way about video games. So you look at like again, I hate to keep kind of using World War II as like the vehicle for my examples and on everything. But it's the one that is the easiest for me to reference. Games like Call of Duty and Brothers in Arms and things like that. So you have these video games about real conflicts that took place. I've also seen video games on the Vietnam War and stuff like that, World War I.
Sure.
So in addition to the History Travelers series, I also have something else on that channel called Echoes of War, where I interview World War II veterans. I've got a hard drive here with about 30 interviews. And talked with these men, and I've heard their stories, and I've heard all these horrific things that they went through. And then to go from that to seeing that experience be turned into a game, to me, I'm a little torn on it because it trivializes the experience in one way. But then on the flip side, let me tell you, I have people that have a pretty deep knowledge of World War II because of the video games that they've played. So is that a win? I don't know. They
Right.
They know some stuff. They appreciate it. So if
That's
I'm
interesting.
gonna trade things off, I'll take that. I'll take
That's
that as
a
a win.
very interesting perspective. Yeah.
If they know something. So drunk history. If is it stupid? Is it a weird format? Well, maybe. Is it teaching them history? Well, if the answer is yes, even if it's not for me, I'll have to take that as a win. Memes are another great example. You wouldn't believe how much people learn, or their connection is from seeing memes.
Right.
I'll talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh yeah, I saw a meme about that one time."
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"What? Did you ever read a book?" So that's like the pompous part.
That's the language that we're talking in today.
Yeah, well, that's the social claim for the last election and how it was won, was that it was basically, that was one of the main kind of pushes forward.
Yeah, it was
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we live at a different time.
The winner of the election is the one who won the meme war.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they call it, the meme war.
I taught my son who the best James Bond was by showing him a meme. So that's.
I was wondering if you were familiar at all with the initiative that Richard Dreyfuss is behind right now. The actor.
No.
You're going to need a bigger boat. He started, and I saw him talk about this on TV probably about 6 months ago, and I went and signed up on his petition. He is trying to start an initiative to bring civics class back to high schools and junior highs. I know when we grow up, I assume since you're homeboy too, it was mandatory. You had to do a semester of Constitution and learn the U.S. Constitution and how the government functions, and then a semester of state. And you learned about the state constitution. I don't know if is that even a thing anymore? Does that appear in schools?
Yeah, absolutely. Now I can't speak for every school.
Right. I didn't know about any other state. I knew for Missouri it was a thing when I was in school, which wasn't yesterday.
Yeah, I know that in a lot of schools that's still a thing.
Do you feel like something like that, bringing a civics class back, or are we at a point where we're too postmodern and we got to quit thinking in terms of classroom? We have a ministry background, and a lot of this sounds very familiar, like learning to do things outside of the old box in order to reach people. Does it bear fruit?
Right.
And that being the ultimate kind of measure rather than the method.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think civics education is vital. Anytime it's frustrating to me to hear people talk about their rights, quote unquote. They don't know what their rights are.
Exactly.
And they'll say like these utterly ridiculous things. I have a friend who is an educator. This was back in the George W. Bush days, whenever they were launching No Child Left Behind. And he was an elementary school teacher. There was a kid who was failing his class. It was like a third grade class, I think is what he taught in. The class was getting ready to go on a field trip, and he had made arrangements for this kid to stay at school and get caught up on all his work so he could pass the class. Mother shows up, irate, angry, and said, you can't do this. Like, this is illegal, what you're doing right now, not letting my kid go on this field trip. And they were like, no, it's not. And she said, it absolutely is. And they said, explain to us how that's illegal. And she said, "No child left behind. You cannot leave my child behind." So, true
wow.
story. Yeah.
Wow.
But
funny.
yeah, so we have, not only do we have a lot of historical ignorance in this country, we have a lot of civic ignorance too.
It's hard to understand how we expect people to function as productive members of a society they have absolutely, well, not absolutely no, but close to no real understanding of how it functions
Right.
and how it operates. I mean, like you said, how can you go out and clamor for your rights and you don't even know what they are?
Yeah. Right. Right.
Well, we go back. If we, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, good.
I was just going to say, we go back to classroom civic teaching again, like what you were pointing out, JD. So, what part of that becomes the educator's position on what they believe, and therefore they teach that, and then we're back to that whole thing. We're just in the loop of, what do we do, and then oh, I got a civics education, and yeah, but did you get Are you learning what needs to be learned?
And that's where it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
Is who out there is using their position as a pulpit to convert followers.
Yeah.
That's where the danger comes in, and really that's where parental responsibility comes in.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is something that I struggle with. I'll ask my kids, "Hey, I'll pick them up. How was school today?" "Oh, it was good." Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything? Not really. And then the conversation's over. Okay, so I'm guilty of this as much as anybody. Really, in any of these, especially, well, I'm biased, so I was getting ready to say, especially with history and civics, you should really be digging in. But that's the area where you run the risk of dealing with an activist. So I have one parent that I know of whose kid was coming home talking about how men never landed on the moon. And I'm like, where are you getting this? Like, history teacher told me. So history teacher was a moon landing denier.
Awesome.
And was into like all of these conspiracy theories. So really, rather than teaching like foundational history,
Right.
they were more interested in pushing all of these conspiracy theories to try and be edgy and salacious or whatever. So anyway, yeah. So there needs to be some parental responsibility to, and I'm preaching to myself here, to kind of check that.
No, I agree. Are you afraid or concerned? I don't say afraid. That's probably too strong. Are you concerned that our history is going to be at some point diluted? How are we keeping the truth and moving the ideas? We're losing. We're bound to lose in the next 20 years. Lose everyone was remembered World War II.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost the people that remember World War One. What are our chances and our the possibility of losing the truth and the realism of what really happened and why, and that we need to be teaching?
So with those examples that you mentioned, it's really close to us because it's still, we've got secondhand memories. We have people who were there who told us those things. How passionate do you feel about the French and Indian War? You probably don't have a whole lot of emotional investment in that.
No.
But the people who were alive in 1790 probably were like, man, this is going to be forgotten if we don't. So the further you get from something, you're not going to have that emotional tie-in. So naturally, I think that's going to happen with World War II. It's already happening, really.
Yeah.
Well,
when you talked about the girls and not even knowing who Adolf Hitler was, and just flash forward to today when that's like a constant insult. Oh, you're a Nazi, or he's literally Hitler. It's like you don't even know who that is.
Yeah.
What's your basis for comparison?
Yeah. That's one of the most annoying things to me ever, was whenever somebody
Yeah.
calls somebody else a Nazi. Or
When
they call them-
everybody
I
you
have no idea
disagree
what it
with
is.
is literally Hitler, you kind of are devaluing what a piece of crap Hitler was. You know, it's it should be insulting to people who survived it.
Right. So the past 4 years, I've seen people constantly holding up signs and protesting stuff about Donald Trump and saying that Donald Trump is literally Hitler, showing him with the Hitler mustache and the hair and everything like that.
Did you? I don't know. I won't go super political. There was Amanpour that's on CNN did a thing right after the election where she talked about the Trump rallies and showed video of the Hitler rallies, talking about how, and Donald Trump has done this for the last 4 years.
Yep.
And it's like, look, you don't have to like him, agree with him, vote with him, but that is false.
Right. Yeah, that's completely irresponsible.
Ignorance.
Yeah, and it's a major network saying, we're the news. Trust us.
The county that I live in the 2016 election, went 90% for Donald Trump. Okay. So the area that I live in is Trump country. Guess what I was hearing the 8 years before that? Barack Obama is literally
Hitler. Yeah.
Okay. He is using the same tactics that Hitler and the Nazis used. So,
the Antichrist.
Yeah. So it's irresponsible both ways.
Oh yeah. There's no good way to do it. Hitler was, just like you don't go around calling everybody, Manson or whatever epithet you want to yell.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't understand the horrific nature of what this person did if you think that everyone you disagree with is equal to that. If that's an equivalency that you can just throw out like that, it makes it cheap.
Right. So, I mean, the further away we get from, those historic events, the less emotional investment that we have. As far as like an American audience, though, the thing that I think, and this kind of goes back to the civics thing too, the thing that you do need to have a lot of investment in is Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
Yeah.
Like no matter how far away we get from that, that needs to be the anchor that all of us are tied to, regardless of how far away we get from that. And anybody who's in this country needs to know those things well and be bought into them. Otherwise you don't have a country.
Yeah.
There seems to be a strange shift where it seems to me like the immigrants who have come here and have become citizens over the last maybe 10 or 20 years seem to have a much better grasp of that stuff than a lot of natural born citizens, because they have to.
Isn't that just history repeating itself? I mean, the origin thing, JD, that you were talking about, you talking about the paper mill. It was built by immigrants.
That was a beautiful segue. Beautiful segue.
How much?
That's staying in.
How much history is? I mean, how much of America? America's all immigrants anyway. How much history is built because of the immigrants came in with this idea that I'm going to do something. I'm going to come in. I'm going to escape this tyranny and come over here and do something. That's just, here we are again.
Yeah.
So tell us your origin story. Well, go ahead and finish your thought. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the clock and I'm like, I didn't want to take up your whole night, but this is really fun.
I've got no place to be. But no, so I was actually getting ready to talk about, give some context to the origin story there. So Origin is a company that was started by a man named Pete Roberts. He's just a jiu-jitsu fanatic, so much so that he started a factory. He built a barn in his backyard and went and found this old loom up in Lewiston, Maine. And he was going to start weaving his own fabric. Okay, now, throughout the latter part of the 20th century, as China started to become a growing manufacturing presence, because of cheap labor and because the fact that China to be fair, it has no rules. They can kind of just do things the way they want to. A lot of jobs got just lost. There's a reason that whole area up there is called the Rust Belt. Everything just died as these jobs and this manufacturing went overseas. Not only did the manufacturing go overseas, like the literal equipment, the looms went overseas. So these Chinese manufacturers came over, got the equipment, and took it back. Well, there was this one old loom that was there, and Pete bought it, and they got it together, found some of these old timers who had worked the looms before, started learning how to weave their own fabric. And long story short, he has built this, he and his wife have built this incredible business up there where they're bringing manufacturing back to the United States. And in those videos, I've got another one coming out tomorrow, our time. By the time this is released, it'll already be out, where I kind of go behind the scenes there at the Origin facility and see what they're doing. And I regret that I didn't film more there, because the atmosphere and seeing the pride that those people have in their work, and the fact that they're putting together jeans, and they're building, they're putting together jujitsu gis, and they're into everything there. They're making boots. Okay,
yeah,
Maine
those
was
boots
like
are
this,
amazing.
Yeah, Maine was
are.
like this hub of shoe manufacturing and footwear. All of that left. Well, they're bringing it back. So it's a pretty inspiring story, and it's cool to see. And Pete's a history guy, and is really kind of tapping into that history. And they're going out and they're finding all these old people, and there's not many of them. Finding all these old people, and they're getting that historical knowledge and getting a new generation.
Right, I think you said on one of them there was like 5 people. I can't remember if it was on the boot one or one of the things or the loom. Maybe it was. There was only like
he's talking about
5 people that could operate.
Yeah.
I'm like,
he said, there's a bunch of them. There's 5.
There's 5.
What an interesting cultural document that would be, to see the process of that older generation teaching the younger generation how to work that stuff. I love that you showed a couple times the banner. We get to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can remember how many times I've said that to my kids. You don't have to do this. You get to do this.
Get to do this. Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing. I think the whole story of what they're doing there is really commendable, beyond commendable.
And we almost lost it. Like it was almost gone. That knowledge, because whenever those people are gone, they're gone. Like Pete said in that video.
Yeah.
You can't go watch a YouTube video on this.
Right.
There's no way. There's a lot of ingenuity there. Like something breaks there.
Oh yeah.
They got to figure it out. So it's pretty cool story that they have there.
That's what I like about the World War II museum in New Orleans. It's got that bench. There's a couple benches, compartments you can sit in, and just on the touchscreen, just scroll through the stories, 4 or 5 minute stories of veterans telling their story of, whatever happened that particular day or whatever story they remember. I remember sitting down with a guy named Ken one time, and he was a World War II in the Pacific Theater, talking about how, he was flying a C-17 with his crew, and he remembers them getting orders, don't fly over Hiroshima. You have to stay 100 miles outside of Hiroshima. And they were all like, why? We don't know why. So we flew over it to find out why. He says, maybe that's why I'm 92 years old today. He says, because we didn't know why. So we, we're in a non-pressurized cabin. We wanted to fly over Hiroshima to see what was going on. I'm just like, they didn't even know at the time. So it's just cool to hear those stories and to have a repository of those stories. And that's what you're doing, is you're creating a repository of stories, even modern day stories, where people are going back. We're finding these old timers, and we're figuring out how to weave our fabrics again in the loom. And how many other things are lost out there that we don't even know about, that are gone.
Yeah.
Just think about that. It's astounding.
I don't think any of the 3 of us know how to churn butter or make soap.
I have made butter. I have churned butter.
I haven't even milked a cow. So there you go.
One time I did.
Yeah. That's something that I think about a lot, is.
But it was in grade school. We were learning, I don't think it was Oregon Trail, but we were learning Pioneer Days, and that was one of the things. Okay, we're going to make butter today.
Yeah. Yeah, or if you had to, get a hammer and an anvil and, make some sort of tool.
To fix something on the farm. Yeah.
So there's a perfect example right there of, how much historical knowledge has already been lost.
Yeah.
But
that's, I think Doug and I think you and I talked about that one time. I don't know if that was on one of our podcasts. We talked about going backwards, had we, have to go into the, the 1800s and try to live on a farm, how lost we would be. I would think, I grew up as a rural ranger, I grew up, camping and lashing and finding food and doing those things. If I had to live in that time, I don't know how well I would do. I don't know how long I'd last.
I'm pretty sure I'd lay down and cry. So just be on the ground somewhere.
So you look at that and then you ask yourself the question, which civilization is really smarter? Which one is really more advanced? You look at,
and which one appreciates more of what they have?
That's a $64,000 question there.
Right there. There we go.
Really, each generation, I'm amazed. I'm amazed at the technology. The fact that we're doing this right now just blows my mind.
Yeah.
And then I can also look back at the 1800s, be like, how in the heck did they live? Like, how did they survive that? So people are amazing, and that's kind of one thing that you learn. The more you study.
I always see that scene in Back to the Future 3 when Marty visits the 1800s. I know this is a terrible example, but it's one that's always stuck with me. And
you mean that's not true?
No, it's not. But and because this part is true, but he's back in the 1880s with his Irish immigrant family. Yes. And he takes a bite of the coney or whatever that he hunted and cooked up, and the wife grilled up, and he's spitting buckshot out of his mouth while he's eating it, and they're pouring the water. And I'm just like, man, I am so spoiled, because that was probably real. That was probably realistic in the day. That's what they deal with. That was part of it,
I grew up in the 70s and I had that experience.
Here I'm like, I got a burnt fry at the bottom of my carton, and I'm all hacked off about it.
Yeah. Yeah, most people's concept of hunting is like hunting for the hemp protein at the Whole Foods market or something.
So true. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Oh man, this has been great, JD.
This has been
thank you for doing this.
Delightful.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
It's been a real treat. And I hope you will consider returning and doing this with us again at some time, or
absolutely
something like it. We're still kind of trying to feel our way out and find out.
Yeah.
Hey, I did want to ask you one thing, and this doesn't have to be part of the podcast. Just interestingly, if you're willing to share, I want to ask you. I've heard in your videos many times you've referenced things and said things, and you said something tonight, and I don't remember what. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your, if you're willing, about your personal faith.
So,
and like I said, this doesn't have to be part of the podcast. I can cut this out if this isn't something you want to share on that level. But I'm just, again, this is interpersonal curiosity on my own part.
No, that's perfectly fine. So I consider myself quite fortunate to have been raised in a home with, two godly Christian parents, and two sets of grandparents that follow God. So I what's the phrase I'm looking for here? I don't want to say I cheated, but I,
you rode the coattails.
I was I don't know, I guess, gosh, I even hate to say this word, privileged, to have really been raised in that environment and have people that took me to church and things like that. So I became a Christ follower at a very early age, and that has been my foundation through a lot of difficult times. It's the lens that I view the world through.
Like I said, I've heard you make little references here and there, and I'm like, okay, this guy's probably me more than Mark, but it's something that kind of I guess we talked about from a historic context. It's kind of the same idea that if you put it out on Front Street too much, it's kind of it leaves a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth from what they think Christianity is or religion is. So it's not something I throw in people's faces, but I try to live it by example. I think we both try to live it by example and invite people into that conversation.
Yeah.
So if to me, a Christian worldview is how the world makes sense to me, and whenever you're reading through the Bible, kind of tying this all in with history and everything like that. Whenever you look at history, what you're really studying is not just stories and facts and things like that. That's kind of a dry approach to history. What you're really looking at is human nature. So you can look at all of these things in history. You can go all the way back to the Bible and read through the Bible and look and see the same thing that those people in the Bible from Genesis to Revelation that they were dealing with are the same things that people dealt with in the Middle Ages, same things that people are dealing with now. And all of them have had the exact same need. They've all had the same problems, and they all have the same need, regardless. It's a timeless thing. So yeah,
and they'll respond the same way.
Yeah.
Because that's who we are.
Yeah.
We respond with the same, with what we know, and we respond that way. And
I've told lots of people whether or not you want to accept the Bible as divine is up to you, but it tells a truth about the human condition.
Yeah.
And it tells it over great periods of time, and you see that same thing, that there are no, this is as Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
That we do the same. It's the roadmap of how we got here. And if you want to understand where we are and how we got here, you got to look at the roadmap.
Yeah.
I know you're a map guy, so I threw in that map thing just for you.
Yeah, this is the Bible is God's revelation of Himself, and people all throughout history. That has been the way that they have connected with Him. That has been what has sustained them. If you look through American history, it's undeniable that it was the Bible and their faith that had an impact on it.
Are you familiar with wall builders?
I'm not.
Oh man, and I can't think of that guy's name. He's a Christian guy, but he's heavily into the founding fathers, revolutionary stuff, but it's all from a Christian perspective, and talking about the faith and how these guys lived their faith and viewed what they were doing in founding this country from a faith perspective. David, I can't think of his name. Wall builders. He's got a website, but he does a lot of that. It's something you might be interested in.
Yeah,
I know you probably don't have any time during the day and all the video editing and everything else you're doing. So, but it's an interesting resource. It's an interesting way to see things or to look at things.
Yeah. So yeah, whenever, you'll kind of see that kind of bleed through on the videos because it's really just kind of a reflection of who I am.
That's who you are.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
As I said, it was never like overly obvious. It was just like here and there, little things like,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, you can pick up even on YouTube. You can pick up on the spirit of people, and that's what's cool is you can pick that up even watching you. You're like, this is a real guy. This is
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a super good time, man. I can't again want to say thank you for doing this with us and taking the time.
You invite me. Yeah.
Hey, it's been a great time, and
JD, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you,
man.
Everybody go like and subscribe. He won't ask you, but I will. Like and subscribe. Hit that stupid bell, would you already?
The History Underground.
Tell your friends.
Yes.
History Underground on YouTube, Instagram. I don't know where else you are. You're on all the social media, aren't you? Most of it.
Facebook and Instagram are the big ones.
Okay.
I'll kind of dabble with Twitter. So, the Instagram.
It's kind of like the metric system, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been hurt too many times.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can kind of keep up with the goings on. I try and put out different historical facts and stuff like that I find interesting as well.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. We love it.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Have a great Thanksgiving, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, you guys too.
For sure.
Have a good night, man.
Appreciate it.